Chapter 7 of the Heads of Cerberus by Francis Stevens. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7. A Few Small Changes. The ensuing patrol ride, while commonplace and uneventful from the viewpoint of one accustomed to such jaunts, produced in the bosom of at least one of the prisoners emotions of the most painful and poignant nature. It was not for himself that Drayton suffered. In the recent past, he had been too thoroughly seared by the fires of underserved disgrace to be hurt by so trifling a touch of flame as this. But that Viola Trenmore, Viola of the clear blue eyes and innocent white brow, that she should be forced to enter a common patrol wagon and be carried openly, like any pickpocket, through the city streets, was an intolerable agony in whose endurance he alternately flushed red with shame and paled with ineffective rage. Trenmore the mighty also sat quiescent, but his was the quiescence of a white-hot anger held in check for a worthy occasion and object. A pity to waste all that on mere underlings. Having slowly ascended the short, steep incline where Market Street descended to the ferry, the patrol drove on with increased speed. A mile ahead, at the beginning of a long, straight, brilliantly lighted perspective, reared the huge bulk of City Hall. The immense building's lower part was sketched in lines of light, its tower gleamed gray and pale against the black sky. High upon that uttermost pinnacle there brooded a ghostly figure. It was the enormous statue of William Penn, set there to bless the children of his city with outstretched benevolent hand. "Are you taking us to City Hall?" queried Drayton, turning to the officer on his left. The man nodded. "Your offense is too serious, of course, for a branch temple." A what?" "A branch," said the man impatiently. "Headquarters will want to handle this. Eh, Sergeant?" "They will, but no more conversation, please. Everything you say, my man, will be used against you." "One would think we were murderers," reflected Drayton bitterly. Of what real offense could they have been guilty? Beneath surface absurdity he had begun to sense something secret and dangerous, something upon which his mind could as yet lay no hold, but which might be revealed to them at City Hall. The night was fine, the hour 8:30 by the clock in City Hall tower, the streets well filled. Most of the stores seemed to be open, and innumerable movie theaters, saloons, and shooting galleries each drew in and expelled its quota of people, like so many lungs, breathing prosperity for the owners. There was a New York Bowery touch to the amusements and the crowds which Drayton did not remember as characteristic of Market Street. The thought, however, was passing and only half-formed. The patrol clanged its way over the smooth pavement, attracting the usual number of stares and fortunately unheard comments, and presently swung off Market Street into Juniper. They had approached City Hall from the east. The patrol entrance being on the western side, it was necessary for them to pass half around the great building to reach it. As they passed the Broad Street entrance, Drayton chanced to glance upward. Above the arch hung an emblem done in colored lights. It seemed to be a sword crossing a bell. Above the emblem itself glowed a number, consisting of 4 figures done in red, white, and blue electric bulbs. 2118. The bell, thought Drayton, might represent the old Liberty Bell, Philadelphia's most cherished possession. The numerals, however, conveyed to him no more significance than had those on the yellow buttons these police so harped on. Again turning, the patrol reached Market Street on the western side. Shortly afterward, it was rolling slowly beneath the portico of City Hall. The public buildings, to use the more ancient name for Philadelphia's proud edifice of administration and justice, are built in the form of an irregular hollow square. The large inner court may be entered by means of any one of 4 short tunnels, placed at the 4 cardinal points of the compass, and passing beneath the walls of the building proper. As the 3 prisoners recalled it, that inner court was squarish in shape, paved with gray cement, and of no very beautiful or imposing appearance. Several old cannons, relics of past wars, adorned the corners and stood at either side of the northward entrance. In the northeast corner there was a sort of pavilion, where various free civic exhibits were perennially on view. A patrol wagon, or a Black Maria, generally waited on the southern side of this court. As the center of the place was actually the intersection of those 2 main arteries of the city, Broad Street and Market, whose continuous streams of pedestrians passed through there all day long. Such was the interior of City Hall as the three prisoners remembered it, and into which they now expected to be carried. While yet in the short, dark entrance tunnel, however, the patrol halted. Rising from their seats, the officers hustled their prisoners from the wagon. A moment later, they all stood together, halted just within the rim of the inner arch. And there the three received another of those wildly disturbing shocks, of which they had suffered so many in the past few hours. Instead of a bare gray courtyard open to the sky, there stood revealed an interior which might have been lifted bodily from an Arabian Nights entertainment. Above, rounding to a level with the roofs of the fourth story, curved the golden hollow of a shallow but glorious dome. It seemed to have been carved solid from the yellow metal itself. The entire undersurface was without a seam or trace of ornament, and was polished to almost blinding brilliance. Striking upward upon it from the invisible sources at the sides, light was reflected downward in a diffused glow, yellow as sunshine and giving a curious, almost shadowless appearance to the great chamber below. From the center of the dome, swung at the end of a 20-foot chain, depended a huge bell. This bell had either been enameled smoothly or was cast of some strange metal. The color of it was a brilliant scarlet, so that it hung like an enormous exotic blossom. Some change or repairs to the thing seemed to be in progress, for out of it, from the southern wall, extended a narrow suspension bridge of rough planking that terminated in a partial scaffolding about one side of the bell. No tongue or clapper was within the bell, nor was there any visible means of ringing it. As for the floor beneath, it was of common gray cement no longer. An exquisite pavement gleamed there, made of white porcelain or some similar substance, seamless and polished. In it, the blood-red bell and certain colored panels of the golden walls were reflected as in a pool of milk. Near the northern wall, a design appeared in this floor, set in as a mosaic of varicolored marbles. Where had been the southern and eastern entrances, short flights of green marble stairs led up to carved golden doors, Gothic in style and all closed. The windowless walls, also of gold, were carved in heavy bas-relief. At regular intervals appeared panels, done in bright enamels, representing various weird figures resembling Chinese gods and heroes. The entire color scheme of red, gold, green, and white had a peculiarly barbaric effect, itself entirely out of keeping with the formerly staid and dignified old public buildings. Trenmore, as he gazed, forgot even his anger and stared open-mouthed. They all had time to stare, for the sergeant, having pressed an electric buzzer near the door, stood at ease, obviously waiting for something or someone to answer the summons. "And is this the place they have for a courthouse?" Trenmore murmured. "I've seen the Taj Mahal, and I've seen the inside of Westminster Abbey and St. Paul's, but never. "I can't understand it," broke in Drayton desperately. Amazement had given place to distress as the enormity of change came home to him. "Why, this is incredible. It's preposterous. Here, broke in the sergeant's brusque voice. "None of that. What were you muttering there? Never mind, be silent. Here comes a gentleman who will depose of your case in quick order." At the south, a golden door had opened, and a man was seen descending the short flight of green marble steps before it. Even at a distance, he seemed an impressive figure. Over a largely checked vest, he wore an exquisitely cut frock coat. His trousers were a delicate pearl gray hue, and a pair of white spats surmounted immaculate patent leather pumps. On his head gleamed a shining silk hat. Had the gentleman but carried a flag, gasoline torch, or Roman candle, he might have creditably adorned a political parade. A large bouquet would have passed him well at a Bowery wedding. Amid the barbaric splendor which actually surrounded him, he seemed out of place, but happily unconscious of that fact. Slowly and with dignity he advanced, while in the gleaming porcelain beneath, an inverted, silk-hatted replica of him followed every step. At last his majestic progress ceased. He had halted some 6 paces from the group of prisoners and policemen. Without speaking, he surveyed them with a slow, long, insolent gaze. He was a small man, handsome in a weak, dissipated way, old with the age of self-indulgence rather than years. His greenish hazel eyes were close-set and cunning. He possessed a little pointed mustache, and in the opinion of the prisoners, an unjustifiably impertinent manner. Out of the tail of his eye, Drayton saw that his Irish friend was bristling anew. Well, if the outbreak had to come, he wished it would burst now and annihilate this silk-hatted monstrosity. No man could eye Viola in just the manner of this stranger and deserve continued life. The high-hatted one deigned to speak. "Well, 53, he drawled languidly, addressing the sergeant. "And why have you brought them here? The chief is in attendance on his supremacy, and there's no one else about who cares to be bothered. I myself came over to warn you that pen service is tired of having these trivial cases brought to the temple. Lately, you police chaps seem to consider the temple a sort of petty court for pickpockets." Trenmore passed the sergeant in one stride. "You miserable, insolent little whippersnapper!" he thundered in a voice that was amazingly re-echoed from the golden dome above. Instantly, as if sprung by a single trigger, the 6 policemen had hurled themselves upon him. High-Hat skipped back nimbly out of the way. Drayton, seeing no alternative with honor, flung himself into the combat, and was promptly knocked out by the blow of a policeman's billy. End of Chapter 7.